October 7th, 2022. What would you do if the sky itself started hunting you? Not with thunder, but with a low mechanical buzz that meant death was already circling overhead, watching, waiting, choosing. In the freezing darkness near the front lines in eastern Ukraine, Ukrainian soldiers and medics began whispering about a new kind of fear, one that didn't roar like artillery or scream like jets, but hummed softly before exploding into chaos. And that fear had a name: Iranian-made Shahed-136 drones, first confirmed in Russian use around September 2022, and by early October they were already rewriting the rules of the battlefield in a way nobody fully understood at first. Because these weren't just weapons, they were psychological predators, cheap, expendable, and terrifyingly precise. They came in waves, often at night, their engines sounding like distant lawnmowers or angry insects, earning them the nickname kamikaze drones. And for Ukrainian troops already stretched thin, it felt like the war itself had grown eyes and started stalking them. And that's where the story of Medic Under Fire begins. Not in glory, but in raw survival. Because on that same October night, a field medic known by the call sign Ghost Doc was crouched behind a shattered vehicle, hands shaking but steady enough to keep a wounded soldier alive. While above him the faint buzzing grew louder, closer, like something breathing in the dark. Earlier that day, Russian forces had attempted another push using these drones to soften Ukrainian defensive positions before infantry moved in. But something unexpected happened. The drones, while deadly, were also exposing Russian weaknesses, because their reliance on them showed a shortage of precision missiles and highlighted logistical strain. And Ukrainian air defenses, though imperfect, were adapting fast, shooting down many drones using anti-aircraft guns, small arms, and even electronic warfare systems, turning what was meant to be a silent advantage into a noisy vulnerability. But for the men on the ground, none of that strategy mattered in the moment. Because when a drone locked onto your position, you didn't think about geopolitics. You thought about whether you'd hear it before it hit. And that night, Ghost Doc heard it too late. The explosion wasn't cinematic. It was ugly, sudden, and disorienting, throwing dirt, metal, and pieces of reality into the air. And for a split second, there was silence. The kind that makes your ears ring and your brain question if you're still alive. And then came the screaming, not just from the wounded, but from soldiers who had seen what these drones could do to a human body. Because unlike traditional shells, the Shahed drones often struck with a direct, focused blast that left little chance for survival if you were too close. And that's where the horror set in. Because Ghost Doc had to crawl toward the blast site, knowing he might not be treating injuries, but collecting what was left, and yet he moved anyway. Because that's what medics do. They run toward what everyone else runs from, and in that moment, under a sky that felt alive with invisible threats, he found a soldier still breathing, barely, his uniform torn, his voice reduced to a whisper, asking if he was going home. And Ghost Doc, with blood on his hands and dirt in his mouth, lied like a hero and said, "Yeah, man, you're gonna make it," even though the buzzing had already returned. Another drone circling, another decision from above. And here's where the war turns strange, almost darkly ironic. Because while these drones were meant to cripple Ukraine, they also revealed how fragile Russia's offensive had become, relying on imported technology to maintain pressure, and as weeks turned into months, Ukraine's forces began intercepting more of them, studying their components, learning their patterns, even using machine guns and mobile teams to hunt them down, turning hunters into hunted, and soldiers started joking, dark humor, the kind that keeps you sane, that if you heard the drone, you still had a chance, but if you didn't, well, you were already a memory, and that humor, twisted as it was, became a shield against the constant tension. Because imagine trying to sleep knowing a slow, buzzing death could appear at any moment, targeting not just military positions, but infrastructure, power grids, even cities. Especially during the winter of 2022-2023, when waves of drone attacks aimed to break civilian morale. And yet something else happened instead. People adapted. Soldiers grew sharper, defenses improved, and the very tool meant to cripple Ukraine started exposing cracks in Russia's strategy, showing the world a dependence that raised more questions than answers. But none of that erased the human cost. The nights when medics like Ghost Doc worked under red flashlights, trying not to attract attention, stitching wounds while listening for that sound, that awful, unforgettable buzz. And sometimes, just sometimes, they'd hear laughter too, real human laughter, in the middle of it all. Because war doesn't erase humanity, it twists it, stretches it, makes moments of humor feel like rebellion against fear, and that's what keeps these stories alive. Not just the explosions or the tactics, but the people who endure them, the ones who crawl through dirt and fire to save a life, who joke in the face of death, who look up at a dark sky and refuse to let it own them. And as you watch this, think about it. These drones, introduced into the conflict in late 2022, changed the tempo of war, yes, but they also revealed something deeper about modern conflict. That technology can terrify, but it can also expose weakness. That fear can spread, but so can resilience. And maybe the most haunting part isn't the explosion itself, but the moment before it, the quiet, the waiting, the question every soldier asks when the night goes still. Is that silence peace? Or is something already watching you from above, ready to strike?